All right, let us go to the United Kingdom right now where the wonderful Mark Dolan is standing by. You can see him on TalkTV over there. Find him on YouTube as well, or hang out with us each and every Sunday. Great man, lovely to see you.
Hi, Paul. Happy Sunday.
Now, it feels like I've got to get a flow chart here, but let me bring everyone up to date, right? The reason I think Keir Starmer could actually be at the end is, yes, they've been chopping away at him for a long time, his own mistakes chopping away for a long time, right? However, the final straw, you've got to imagine here, is the fact that he decided to appoint to the United States a guy called Peter Mandelson to be the ambassador for the United Kingdom. Now, he ended up having quite the close ties to Jeffrey Epstein. So this is the world of trouble, right? Which is, it's about Starmer's judgment. It's about his judgment as Prime Minister. It's about the doubling down, because at the time a few people have gone, really, really, really? I think this is what's going to be perhaps an impetus for those who want to push him, but, I mean, he can't swim out of it. He made a horrible decision.
He really did. And he's a man, Paul, of reliably poor judgment. I mean, we can get to the awful policy agenda, which has seen growth destroyed, which has seen the return of inflation and unemployment. But his appointments have been shocking too. There's been a housing secretary who lost her job because she didn't pay stamp duty or transfer duty, a corruption minister who's being investigated for corruption, and a transport minister that stole a mobile phone. So the government was a hot mess before the Mandelson affair. And he's really created a rod for his own back, because Mandelson comes from an entirely different generation of politicians. Mandelson was the architect of Tony Blair's political revolution. Very much the man responsible for bringing spin into UK politics, which does us all a great disservice.
Correct.
And this is a guy in Mandelson that resigned from the top levels of government twice in disgrace. And so what does Starmer think? You know, it was a disaster under Blair. Hold my beer. I'll give this guy the biggest job in British diplomacy, UK ambassador to the United States. And as you said, we are definitely in the territory now of last straw and camel's back.
Yeah, I mean, it's this thing where I can understand all of the people who have their political gripes with Starmer, but obviously with how long your election terms are, the assumption is, look, 1 year's bad, 2, okay, 3, we'll see. Okay. Worst case scenario, 2, politically, two in the back of the head politically at the 4th year. But the fact that this is somewhere between 2 and 3 makes the timing particularly weird. But there are these moments where it's like, hang on, anything to do with Epstein is so radioactive that anything post 2008 with Epstein becomes even more radioactive, hence why when Fergie is reaching out and going back and forth after legal proceedings, it makes things very clear about people's judgment or hearing lack thereof. And that is where, if Starmer is already so low, he has no political capital. And I see you ask the question about whether or not, is there a scapegoat? Well, who could the scapegoat be? He's the one who, even if it was suggested, even if he owed a favour, he's the one who went, oh, well, you get the jersey, get out there and be the ambassador to the US.
Most definitely. And there's no well of goodwill towards Starmer out there in the country or within his own party, because he's the most unpopular prime minister since records began. If the economy was flying and we'd stopped the boats, controlled illegal immigration, then I think he'd have a little bit of leverage, some headroom, but it's all gone. And you're right about his judgment, and appointing Mandelson raises a question about Starmer's moral code as well. Because as you've mentioned, we all, don't we, Paul, come into contact with people, friends, colleagues, that turn out to be wrong uns. And when that emerges, right, we work in the media, they're all wrong uns. But the bottom line is that if somebody is, hanging out with a wicked individual like Epstein, post-conviction for child sex trafficking, at that point, you would hope that contact was broken. Starmer knew full well that Mandelson and Epstein remained besties. So the guy's got no ethics, no judgment, no wisdom. He'll be gone before the end of the year. The only problem we have, be careful what you wish for,
Who's
Paul,
next,
because those jostling for position, we're bound to be more left-wing. And the country is maxed out financially now with our borrowing. unemployment, inflation, as I mentioned, both on the march. So Britain will shift to the left. And I think by the time of the next election, you could probably buy Britain for like $11, right? We'll be on eBay. That's the buy it now price. Or maybe Donald Trump will do us a favor and pick us up, Paul.
51st state, or sorry, 52nd, of course, after Canada. Now, I noticed on your YouTube channel that you went to a place that I've got to say I've been thinking about, but you were more courageous than I, so now I get to follow your lead, which is about Andrew's kids, right? Now, obviously, they want to remain princesses. They want to remain sort of out and about. They want to remain part of polite society. And on your YouTube page, you delivered a bit of an insight and an editorial that, look, you know, if they have to choose, pretty obvious who they're going to end up choosing here, and that's the wider family, no matter how painful that is for the relationship with the father. What blowback did you get after you started saying that?
Well, any blowback that comes with telling the truth, Paul, and that's what's brilliant about your channel and your show, is that you say it like you see it. There's no agenda, and it won't always be fashionable. It won't always be popular. Now, in mitigation, I will say that for sure, it wasn't the choice of Beatrice and Eugenie to be born to those parents. You don't choose your parents. I get it. But it's very clear that they are just as egocentric, just as narcissistic as their parents. They are cash-hungry grifters. They are a chip off the old block, both Fergie and Andrew, as demonstrated by the book, the Downfall. It's basically Andrew Lowney wrote this book entitled, it's called Entitled. And he said, this is a guy, Andrew Lowney, that's been studying the Yorks for decades. And he said that the girls are just as bad and that they will happily throw their parents under the bus if they can hang on to HRH, hang on to princess this and princess that, hang on to, you know, coming out of church with King Charles and Prince William on Christmas Day. They love the fame, they love the pedigree, and they won't give it up.